Welcome to My Life. We're very privileged and pleased to have Erich Senft from Addison Township with us today. Erich has been on the Addison Board of Trustees for the last 2 years. Prior to that, he was on the Police and Fire Board for 7 years, another 4 years on the Zoning Board of Appeals, and he's lived in Addison Township for 37 years. Welcome, Erich. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
You guys have had some stuff going on out in Addison Township recently. The Strawberry Festival, for one, that's a big event every year out there, isn't it?
Yes, it is. A lot of exposure for officials of the township, and also, of course, it's a big benefit for the fire department, for the Firemen Association. It's a good fundraiser. So yeah, it's plus it brings the community together. And of course, it gives good exposure for the activity going on right now, which is the
opportunity
elections.
for the politicians to hand out a few brochures.
Yeah, hand out brochures, shake a hand, and this is a new adventure for me. I've never been a true politician running for anything. I was appointed to the Board of Trustees 2 years ago due to illness of one of the trustees.
Well, besides the Strawberry Festival, which, by the way, has come a long way in all the years it's been on. I mean, it was started by firemen handing out strawberry sundaes, I think, and now you've got 30 or 40 local commercial sponsors of the event, having a parade, a car show, and other stuff going on during that. So that's a pretty big deal now, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and I think it really adds to the community. Especially the young people, to see exactly what's going on in the township, and yeah, so it's going to be a big deal.
And not only that, but a few weeks ago you had our old buddy Brooks Patterson out to pay you a visit when you opened your new town hall, didn't you?
Yeah, and that's again. Let me go back to being an appointed trustee 2 years ago. During those 2 years, they've been on there. The township embarked on the largest project that they ever undertook, and that is to put a new township building up. Yeah, it was a very
They were just waiting for you
project.
to come on board, weren't they?
It seemed that way, yeah. But the trusteeship is something that kind of falls into place with me. In my 40 years at GM, I've learned a lot of skills, team building, problem solving, and I mean formal training also.
Well, you didn't have a chance to test any of those there.
I had a lot of chances to test that, yeah. So, but anyway, so applying that for the project was really good, and it came successful. And as you mentioned, Brooks Patterson, he came by, and he has a gleam in his eye for the nicest spot in Oakland County, as he says, Addison Township, you know, and he showed up for the grand opening, which really made us feel good.
Well, it's obvious that you love Addison Township for all the years that you've lived here and all the years that you've served on the various boards. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
The other day you were in our station for something else, and we had a little conversation, and something came up that really sparked my interest. And that was about where you came from and where your roots were and how your life developed from point A to point B as you came from there to here. Okay. Let's start with, where were you born?
I was born in 1944 in Germany, okay, in the southern part of Germany, a small town called Kreisheim.
That was right around the end of World War II.
Yeah, it was even before before the end of the war. So yeah, some pretty bad times that I went through.
What did your father do there?
My father is a mechanical engineer, and his background is diesel engine development. And that was something that he worked on with a large company in Germany that produces large trucks with heavy-duty diesel engines.
And I want to get into that more, but before we do, I like to try and backtrack as much as possible. Did you have the opportunity to know your grandparents?
Oh, definitely. Both of my grandparents on my father's side and on my mother's side. On my mother's side, my grandfather was in the horses, and he had cows. And as you'll hear later on in our sessions,
that didn't inspire you to do anything.
Oh,
did
that kind of stuck with me. You couldn't wash it off, you know.
Did you get to work on their farms much when you were a boy?
Yeah,
or?
Yeah. As I grew up, you know, I learned to ride on sometimes he'd hitch up an ox and a horse to work the fields and so on. I would learn how to ride either on a horse or on an oxen. They would be teamed up. So that's how I got started doing that.
Now, most of the people that I interview were born here in the United States, and I asked them to backtrack how many generations far back they would have to go to come to the first people to set foot in this country. But in your case, you came from Germany and you were the first to set foot here. But did you ever have a chance to trace your ancestry over in Germany?
Yes, I did. Yeah, oh yeah. It goes back quite a ways. On my mother's side, from the southern part of Germany, and my father's side more in the northern. Now, you know, Germany is not all that big, so you're not talking about big distances between the two. But yeah, I actually knew that would be my grandfather on my mother's side, who lived to be 96.
You actually knew your great-grandfather?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Was he a farmer as well?
He worked for the railroad, as did my grandfather. Also worked for the railroad, and he farmed, kind of, you know, hand-in-hand type thing. Part-time farming, full-time working for the railroad, and my grandfather was the same way.
I see.
So that was the homestead that everything.
How many years was it before? How old were you when you came to the United States?
I was 13.
So you lived in Germany long enough to have some of the things embedded in your mind from your childhood from there? Yep. Have some memories of your grandparents and maybe even your great-grandparents? Mm-hmm. You actually had a chance to get to know those people.
Oh, absolutely.
Not everybody can say that.
Yeah, it really is interesting, yeah. And they're good memories, of course, you know, and interesting memories.
Not only that, but you started your education in Germany, didn't you?
Yeah. Now, that's a topic that is quite unique. At 13, when I came over here, which is just prior to getting into high school, my math education was already beyond high school. You know, so the education, there's a big difference between the two countries. So, but I didn't speak English, so that was my big hurdle.
That was a big challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some of your memories of starting school in Germany? Did you go to a big school, a little school?
Yeah, I went to school. The town is Nuremberg, known for the Nuremberg trials. Okay, it's a very industrial area. As a matter of fact, that's where my father worked for the large trucking company. And so what I remember about that is one word: it was strict. School, you know, it was you did it right, you did it neat, and you did it on time. And that kind of got embedded in me too. So
now, this was right after the war. Well, it was a few years after the war by the time you started school.
Yeah.
What sort of memories of the war or thoughts about what had happened previously were brought forth as you were going into this phase of your life?
The memories about the war, specifically in the area around the school in Nuremberg, I walked past blocks and blocks of bombed out buildings that were not rebuilt yet. Once or twice a month, the sirens would start, where everybody had to take cover because they found another unexploded bomb.
Right.
And those are some memories that you know, I never forgot.
I want to get into that a little bit more. We have to take a break now, but we'll be right back with Erich Senft.
There's a lot of history to Oxford. Hidden around every corner, deep in every crack, and sometimes right in front of you, waiting to be discovered. If you just dig a little, you'll find the great history of our beautiful town. Welcome to Historic Oxford.
here with Erich Senft from Madison Township. We were just talking about your early school years in Germany, right after World War II, and some of your thoughts, your memories of the sights, and some of the ideas of others about World War II at the time, the trickle down, if you will, from that. Mm-hmm. You were describing some bombed out buildings. Why don't you take us from there?
Yeah, those are the memories that I have when I went to school outside of Nuremberg. And there was other. Nuremberg is a very scenic old town. It was known for its business people, like trade companies, sure, and that kind of thing. And so there was a lot of activity, and it was a very wealthy city. And it was so wealthy in the old days, they built a wall around it to keep people out. And that still exists today. It's really one of the more scenic, But one of the highlights that I remember is at Christmas time, all the schools, the students would make lanterns. We'd put a candle in, and then all the students would walk through the inner city up to the castle, and all the lights would be turned out in the city. It's something, you don't forget. So that's another memory that I have.
Yeah. Do you remember that World War II was just kind of not talked about anymore? Or were there any impressions of Americans given to you from about World War II at the time?
At that time?
Yes.
Well, I had a connection due to my dad's sister met a soldier, U.S. soldier, that she ended up marrying at about that time, and he became a close member of the family. So we actually got to know someone from the United States, a very, very nice man. He was a major role in my life later on. But all in all, the war was talked about because it took its toll, because everything was bombed. People, had to start over again, and it's not pleasant to have a war in your own country, And
what kind of thoughts did your parents communicate to you about the war? And we might mention that your dad, God bless him, is still living. He's 100 years old this year, I believe you said. Mm-hmm. But what thoughts do you remember that they communicated to you back then when things were still relatively fresh?
I think the main thing that was communicated to me is that war is not a good thing, and it's kind of something of last resort. It does a lot of damage, physically, mentally, and all that. So I think what I remember is my family tried to not forget it so much, but try to overcome it.
Sure.
Because it's really it's hard to overcome.
Was there any bitterness towards anyone, towards Hitler, towards the Americans, towards anybody?
I don't remember too much, but I do remember there was a lot of good feelings towards Americans, especially through our contact through my aunt's future husband at that time. There was a lot of positive, and there were. The other thing that I remember my relations talking about contacts with U.S. soldiers was always a positive thing. We're generous, we're kind, and the ironic thing that they always mentioned, it didn't matter whether they were white or black. They were U.S. soldiers, and that I distinctly remember.
You were talking about the Christmas celebration and going to the castle. Do you have any other memories of things you did for fun when you were in grade school?
Riding my bike and then skiing. I started skiing at a young age over there. I liked doing that. And you would take a bus and go. The Alps are not that far away. You take 3 hours and you're up in the mountains. So I enjoyed doing that.
Were your parents pretty strict?
They were. Yeah, I would say they were. Yeah, I think so.
Did you live close enough to your grandparents that you saw them frequently?
Yes, especially on my mother's side, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when you went to help out at your grandfather's farm, that's when you got horses in your mind, right?
Yeah, being around horses, cows, and yeah, and that was part of the image, you know, that I formed as I saw westerns, you know, in the movies over there. Rarely, you know, we would see something, and to me, U.S. was cowboys and Indians, you know, and so yeah, that big impression in my mind.
Did you play any sports in school?
Soccer.
Did you?
Oh yeah.
Popular sport in Europe.
Oh yeah.
So you were 13 when you came to the United States. So you were just on the verge of what would be high school over here, I guess, weren't you?
Yes.
And what was it that caused that?
That goes back to my father's occupation, mechanical engineer, and working on a project over there to develop a new diesel engine.
Was he involved in that during the war?
Yes.
He was?
Yeah.
Okay.
To develop a new diesel engine for the U.S. Army that would run on multiple fuels. You could run on kerosene, whatever they could have, they could pour it in and they could run it turbocharged. Very probably state of the art at that time already. And that project was going on in Germany, and then the U.S. Army decided to bring that over here to the United States, specifically Detroit. And the company that was under contract was Continental Aviation down on Courchevel. They created turbine engines for jets, and they developed diesel engines for tanks. So he came over here, and that was how we came over in 1956. My dad came over first, and in 57 he brought over my mother and I.
That had to be an interesting experience for him. I mean, seeing as how the war was going on before,
yeah.
He went from one boss to another, kind of.
Yeah, yeah, in a way. Yeah.
I bet he's got some interesting stories to tell.
Yeah, very interesting, you know, and very interesting.
What was going through your mind when you first learned that you were going to move to the United States?
That goes back to what I saw in the movies, you know, in Germany when I was a kid, cowboys and Indians. So horses were, you know, that was my main, you know, just wow, where is this, you know? So we come over here, and here I'm in Detroit. All I see is concrete, cars, and houses, you know. So yeah, that was my vision, so to speak. You know, when I came here, I'm coming to the land where there's cowboys and Indians.
So did you say to your father, Dad, couldn't we move to Colorado or California?
Well, I remember now. My parents are German, you know, so you will follow as we lead, you know. So but no, we had a nice start here, but in a couple of years, I already found out where I could go to get involved with horses, and
sure,
you know, a little bit outside Detroit.
I want to pick up on your first coming to this country, but we have to take a little break. We'll be right back with Erich Senft.
A small town with a lot of heart and history. A hidden gem with a sense of community. Welcome to Leonard. Canine Stray Rescue is Oxford's own local dog rescue. Each year they take in hundreds of dogs and bring them into suitable homes. A certified nonprofit organization, Canine Dog Rescue strives to give pound dogs a new leash on life. To donate, adopt, or even volunteer, call them at 248-628-0435 or go to their website, dogsaver.org, and click on the Canine Stray Rescue League link.
Here with Erich Senft from Madison Township, we were just discussing about your life as you were moving from Germany to the United States. Was there anything that you were kind of fearful of when you were first told that your family was going to move here?
I was fearful of going to school here, not knowing the language. I didn't speak one word when I came here, and that was definitely a fear factor. But it was overcome. I had an English teacher in school. I still remember her name, Miss Ruby, and she did all kinds of efforts for half a year. She even had pictures, with names, like you give a kindergartner. She taught me how to speak English very fast within a half a year.
That's amazing, but of course, as you know, if you look back in history around the early 1900s, a lot of our immigrants were in that same situation coming over here.
Correct.
But by the time you came over, hopefully our system was honed to the point that it made things a little easier for folks like you. Sounds like it did.
It did. There was places where you could learn the language, like my mother, for example. She attended Wayne State evening classes to learn the language. My dad knew English already from school over in Germany, so he spoke English fluently.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Where did you go to school when you first came over here?
Lakeview School District in St. Clair Shores.
So you moved to St. Clair Shores.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is your memory of your first day in school?
I don't know if I remember the first day, but it was pretty stressful. You imagine being in a room where everybody's talking and you have no idea what they're talking about.
So did this teacher kind of take you aside and say, "Look, I know this is going to be tough, but
Yes.
here's what we got to do and how we got to do it"?
Yes, that's exactly. She laid a plan out, very basic, and she stepped it up. Like I say, within a half a year. If I remember, they didn't even grade me during that time. That was kind of I don't know exactly how that was handled credit-wise, but like history. I had to read. I had to read too. I had to learn how to read English.
Sure.
So math, I had all that in school already, so I was flying through math. Science, the same thing.
How were you accepted by the other kids?
I think I was accepted quite well. When I started speaking English, of course, at that age, you made fun of.
Sure.
They would say, "Hey, Eric, why don't you say this?" Words that I had trouble with. And some of my old friends, they still get me on that, So, hey, say that stuff that's on the floor in the kitchen.
Did they lighten up on that when they realized you could help them with their math homework?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It equals out, So.
Is this about when you started looking more into where the horses were that you'd like to be with, or
Yeah,
how did that come about?
and that's kind of a neat thing too. I also enjoyed cars at an early age. Coming over here to this country, seeing cars everywhere, big cars. So I was really enthused about that. And I think it was around 1964, something like that, just when I graduated high school. I went to a drag strip out by Marine City, north of Detroit, and with some friends to watch drag races, and a friend of ours, he had a Corvette, and that's where my love of Corvettes started too. So I'm watching this drag race, I'm out there, and right next to the drag race is a riding stable, okay? Horses everywhere, and I'm thinking, okay, this is it, I found it, so I think a couple of weeks later I decided to go over there, and wouldn't you know that the owner of that is German, right? Still speaks the language. And he had some people there that owned horses that were German. I said, that was it. So I got involved with that, and that's where the horse thing started.
So did he enlist your support, as it were, to shine up his cars and brush off his horses, or?
Well, yeah, no, the racing guy on the drag strip was a different guy. Okay, he's the one that took me out there. But the guy that owned the stable, he right away enlisted me. Come on out, I have a horse that you can ride for free, and so.
And what grade would you have been in? Was this?
I just graduated high school.
Graduated high school.
Yeah.
A lot of things were going on in 1964. One of them was the Vietnam War. Another one was things in Detroit were getting kind of tense, leading up to the riots in '67.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff going on. What was going through your mind as you approached high school graduation besides Corvettes and horses?
Well, I'm planning what I would do next, of course, where I would, maybe study, and also, kind of what was happening in Detroit. Here we're living in St. Louis Shores, nice place to live. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, when things got a little tense in Detroit, that was, I don't remember exactly how it affected me, but I know it was.
Did your dad drive to Detroit to go to work every day?
Yes.
Okay, what was the company he worked for? Do you recall the name?
Yeah, Continental Aviation.
Okay.
It was on Kirchville, pretty close down to where the Chrysler plant is down there. It was right next to the old Hudson plant.
Uh-huh.
And I remember that, driving down there.
You mentioned your mother also took some classes locally to learn English.
Wayne State, yeah.
Yeah. Did she eventually work outside the home or not?
No, my mom was always at home.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I had a twin brother.
A twin?
Yeah. I guess I should have mentioned that in our previous section, but we were born in '44. Long story short, we both, it was bad conditions. House was bombed out, and we lived, I guess, in a forest some of the time to get away from the bombing. Anyways, we both got diphtheria, and from diphtheria, my brother developed romantic heart problems, and so did I actually. So but he, after 2 years, succumbed of that.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
The period of time that you just mentioned would have been during what ages for you?
Well, we were born in '44.
Right.
Okay. And he died towards the end of '45, so that was right at the end of the war. But in '44, bombs were still falling, and so when things were bad, we had to go out of the house, and my mother was home at the time, my grandmother, my grandfather. So it was tough, so health-wise.
And these were things that you probably don't remember yourself, but were told about after the fact.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
So,
moving back up to high school. No,
yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up,
Yeah,
because these are experiences not everybody goes through.
Yeah.
We got to take a little break. Actually, what we're going to do is conclude our first segment here of My Life with Erich Senft. We got a lot of ground to cover, so folks, please rejoin us tomorrow for part 2 with Erich Senft from Madison Township. Thanks for watching.
Do you love local sports? Whether it's Oxford High School or Parks and Rec, you can buy copies of each game. To purchase your copy, call us at 248-628-9658 or give us an email at manager@occtv.org or talk to us at the next game. Hopefully we'll see you there.
Hello, I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny. Together we want to invite you to our weekly show, Minutes by Minute.
Minutes by Minute is a show where we talk about what's going on with your local Oxford-Addison commissions and councils and other local political groups, passing out legislation and ordinances that affect you. We believe that there is humor in politics and government, and you just have to look for it.
And usually we find it. For example, did you know that a local village has an ordinance that says if you have an acre of land, you're allowed up to 25 chickens, but no rooster?
That could be bad news for the chickens and bad news for the rooster.
Check out our weekly Minutes by Minutes, Monday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. and 10:30 p.m.
There is a warning, Minutes by Minute could be contagious.